Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there was a little candle sitting on a dusty shelf. Every night, it watched the stars shine and the moon glow, wishing it could bring light to someone's life too. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there was a little candle sitting on a dusty shelf. Every night it watched the stars shine and the moon glow, wishing it could bring light to someone's life too. One day, a wise old woman noticed the candle. She took it off the shelf and asked the candle, "Little one, why are you so sad?" The candle said, "Oh, wise woman, I want to be useful, but I am too small to do anything." The old woman smiled and said, "Little candle, you may be small, but you have the power to bring light into darkness. Don't underestimate yourself." The next day, a storm came to the village. It was so strong that it knocked down all the trees and tore off the roofs of many houses. People ran around crying out for help. They couldn't see because the storm had taken away the roof of the town hall, plunging the entire village into darkness. The wise woman was walking home from the market when she heard people shouting. When she saw what had happened, she knew she had to do something. She remembered the little candle she had talked to the day before, and she went to get it. When she arrived at her home, the candle was shaking in fear. The old woman comforted it and said, "Little candle, this is your chance to be useful. Are you going to give up?" The candle thought about what the old woman had told it the day before. It knew that even though it was afraid, it had to try. So it took a deep breath and said, "I won't let you down, wise woman." The old woman put the candle on top of her house. Its flame was small at first, but it grew bigger and bigger until it was a giant ball of fire. People saw the light and started running toward it. They were so happy to see a light in the darkness that they cheered and shouted, "We found a light. We found a light." The old woman saw that people were coming closer and closer, so she called out to them, Wait, don't come any closer, or the wind will blow you over." But people were desperate. They couldn't see anything else in the darkness. All they saw was the beautiful bright light from the candle. The old woman tried again. "If you come any closer, you might burn to death." But people couldn't hear her. They only had eyes for the candle. In their minds, the candle looked like this. Then a young man stepped forward. He walked past the old woman and reached out to touch the flame, but the old woman grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. He turned around and yelled at her, "Let me go. Old woman, I want to be with my people. We need the light." The old woman shook her head and said, "You don't understand. This light is dangerous. It can hurt you." But the young man didn't listen. He pushed past her and ran toward the candle. When he touched it, he didn't burn. Instead, the candle seemed to grow brighter and happier. Then the old woman understood. The candle wasn't just a candle. It was a magical being. It wasn't scared of the dark, but it was lonely. And the darkness wasn't scary, but it was boring. The candle wanted company. The old woman called out to the people, "Come back. You don't need this light. It's not real." But people didn't listen. They kept running toward the candle, each wanting to be the one to touch it. Suddenly, the candle exploded into 1,000,000 pieces. Each piece flew away and landed on someone's head, turning them into candles. The young man who had touched the original candle first became the biggest and brightest. Then the old woman cried out, "Oh, no! What have I done?" The people were confused. They looked at the old woman and then at the candles in their hands. They didn't know what to do. The old woman explained, "This isn't a blessing. These aren't real candles. They're magical beings. If you light them, they'll become real candles. But once that happens, they'll be ordinary. You'll lose this opportunity forever." People panicked. They threw their pieces of candle to the ground and stomped on them, trying to make them disappear. But the more they tried to get rid of them, the more real they became. They started smoking, and some even flickered with a tiny flame. The young man picked up the biggest piece and looked at it. It was still glowing, but it was weak. He knew if he didn't do something, the candle would become real and its magic would be gone. So he held it high above his head and shouted, "Whoever wants to be with me should take a piece of this candle." People hesitated, but they liked the idea of having a piece of the magic candle. So they reached out and took pieces with their hands. The young man kept the biggest piece for himself. Then, together, they walked into the forest. They didn't know where they were going, but they knew they had to be careful. If one of them accidentally lit the candle, their whole group would suffer. The forest was dark and scary. Some trees were tall and thin, like skeletons, and others were bent and twisted like witches' fingers. There were also strange noises everywhere. Sometimes it sounded like someone was walking behind them. Sometimes it sounded like someone was watching them from a tree. But even though the forest was scary, the people were happy to be together. They felt safe in numbers. They walked for hours until they finally came across a clearing. In the middle of the clearing stood a big oak tree. Its branches were thick and strong, and its roots were wide and deep. "We should hide here," said the young man. "No one will ever find us in this forest. And we can watch over our candles together." People agreed. They hid in the forest and kept their candles close. Every night they gathered around a campfire and told stories to keep each other awake. They couldn't risk falling asleep and losing their magic. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And soon it was Christmas Eve. People had almost forgotten about the old woman and the village. They were happy in their new home. But then suddenly, someone shouted, "Look! There's a light in the distance." People looked toward the light and saw a beautiful Christmas tree decorated with lights and ornaments. Under the tree was a big pile of presents. "I want to go see what's going on," said the young man. "Maybe we can get some presents for ourselves." But the other people shook their heads. They were scared to leave the forest. After all, they had been hiding here for a long time. The young man didn't listen. He took a few steps away from the tree and disappeared into the darkness. Suddenly, they heard screams and shouts. People ran to the edge of the clearing and saw the young man running toward them. He was out of breath and scared. "Come back! Quick!" he said. "The old woman, she's after me." People knew they had to run away, but they didn't know where to go. The forest was dark and they couldn't see anything. Then suddenly, the young man stumbled and fell to the ground. His candle fell out of his pocket and landed on a dry leaf. It started smoking, and then it burst into flames. The light was so bright that people couldn't see anything. When they could see again, they were lying on the ground, and the young man was gone. They looked at the candle in their hands and realized it was no longer glowing. They were ordinary candles now. Then they heard footsteps. It was the old woman. She picked up the young man's candle and said, "I knew you'd find this, little one. You have a good heart. You just wanted to help people." The young man stepped forward and asked, "What's going to happen to us? Will we turn into ordinary candles too?" The old woman smiled and said, "No, you're special. You brought light into the darkness for everyone else. That's why I chose you." She handed the candle back to the young man and said, "Now, go back to your village. The storm is over and your people need you." The young man thanked the old woman and ran back to the village. He found people, rum, family, and friends. They were so happy to see each other again. Meanwhile, the old woman returned to her hut. She sat down by the window and watched the stars shine. She was happy to see that the young man had found his way back to the village. She knew that even though the other people had lost their magic, they would be okay. They had each other. And that was all that mattered. The end. The moral of this story is that no matter how small you are, you can make a big difference in the world. Don't ever underestimate yourself. Thank you for watching. Do you like this story? If yes, please hit the like button and subscribe, so you will never miss any of our new stories. Also, share this video with your friends and family members.